All right, folks, thanks so much for checking in. This is Real Knoxville Music. My name is Nick Horner, and you are joining us for the inaugural episode of Meet Music Knoxville. I want to give you a little bit of background about today's show. So my name is Nick Horner. I am the producer of the upcoming musical celebration called Meet Music Knoxville, and it's all about the folks right here in town making a lot of great music and giving them a platform to celebrate in conjunction with people all around the world. And, you know, it's funny, I was hanging with Chris, and he said, man, would you ever consider hosting a radio show? And I said, yeah, I want to host a radio show where I talk with people and just bullshit the whole time. No preparation, no anything. Make it just like we're hanging out at a gig, whatever.
Just two people talking.
Just two people talking. And that's what we have here today. My first host, or guest, maybe at this point, either of us could be the host, really.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. First guest is Cullen. Okay, so this is hilarious. Kehoe?
Kehoe. Yeah.
Great. This is, so, and as I think I mentioned, I don't know, because I'm winging it here, the nature of the show is first meetings, and Cullen and I met briefly at Awaken Cafe downtown.
Awaken, that's right. Yeah. I thought you were saying, at first I was like, Awake. I'm like, wait, did we meet at Awake? Because I don't remember who died. I have no idea who it was, but that's okay. No. Yeah, Awaken Coffee downtown. Downtown Knoxville.
Yeah. We met there briefly, and I was out with the dog, and Chris was like, "Hey, stop by. You know, we'll have a coffee together." And so it was very brief, but this is really our first time chatting. So thank you so much for joining us today, Cullen.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
So you, from what I understand of you, it's of course songwriter, but then also man of many hats. Just in terms of the industry and also a part of the community.
Yeah, I have worked in a lot of different facets of the music industry, from musician, all the way up to label and everything in between. I don't know if you'd say jack of all trades, but yeah. I guess you could say that. Yeah, why not? Sure.
I say that. I add a special tag at the end of that jack part for myself.
Okay.
You could probably guess what that is. The ass part.
Little Jack Horner. Is that what you?
Oh yeah, I guess I have that going too. Whatever. But so there's a little Jack Horner element. There's also the jackass part. But anyway, and the other thing that I found out early on about you was that in touring through town before I lived here, I had heard about this place, the Troubadour.
Yeah.
And I had heard all these great things about it. And then it seems like as soon as I heard about it and it was going to be the stop when we came through town, unfortunately, it's not around anymore.
It's not, and it's a shame. It was a great venue. The hall itself. It was called the Troubadour Roadhouse and Performance Hall, and the hall itself was great for live music, and it was a location that was built a long time ago that used to do that, like on Fridays and Saturday nights. They had bands. It was right before they repaved and redirected Highway 70 and before I-40 corridor was put in. And so this location was like a real, it was a road stop, and it was great. It was listed in AAA magazines and stuff like that. So the hall itself was fantastic for people to play in, whether it was a band or an individual musician. And unfortunately, what happens is you take a chance and you hope that things are going to work out, and the economy has different plans. So,
isn't that always the case?
Yeah.
I have to laugh about, but we make the most of these experiences.
Yeah.
I'm here today because of this pandemic, and it's great, and I love Knoxville. I mean, I can't say enough positive things about this place, but I never thought in a million years that I would be here so soon, honestly, in my personal career. And I'm sure with the Troubadour, it's going to lead to a lot of great other stuff in its apps,
Yeah. I mean, one, I think that we were trying to do a couple different things, and I wasn't originally going to go into this. I was going to do something else. Like I said, probably since the age of 17, I've been involved in one aspect of music or another, and I was kind of turning away from that. And then a friend had asked if I could help him out, and we found this place, and it just seemed like a good opportunity. I would say that it could lead to something else. I mean, everything I was doing kind of led up to that. But it's also a great experience. Although it wasn't an overall business success, part of, I mean, I would even say anything involved with music, you're not going to have successes every time. Whether you're going out and performing, or whether you're going out, whether you're writing, whether you're releasing a record, not every record's going to make it. And so it's a learning process. And, I learned that with a record label that I had purchased back in 1989 and ran that for a few years. And not everything that you're going to do is going to work out. It's going to hit. And it takes a while. But what I did find that what happened is, it started to spur a lot of development in that area that the Troubadour was located in. So now, in that area of Knoxville, are all of these other places that are popping up and hosting either open mics or live music. And it's really, the partner I had at the time said, we're going to be the cornerstone of the Bearden music scene. And I was like, no, okay, we'll see what happens. We're not the cornerstone, but it seems like it opened up a huge opportunity for a lot of other people. And now there's this almost kind of specific group of businesses that have live music and a lot of people showing up that hadn't shown up at other areas of Knoxville, which I thought was really kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So, and one of the things that people know about Knoxville is it's got a great downtown music scene. It has for a long, long time. We're we're going back way into the 90s, but even before then, I mean, Knoxville is, it can be considered the birthplace of not only country music, but rock and roll. I know Bristol says they're the birthplace of country music, but let's face it, if it wasn't for Knoxville, none of those records would be sold. And that's what Knoxville was famous for. Also, one of the very first record stores in the nation was a place that was downtown in Knoxville, was a place that sold an Elvis Presley record, the very first one, and kind of like the birth of rock and roll. So Knoxville has a great long history in music and songwriters. And downtown has a specific scene. And there are people that will come from all over to go to downtown, but there aren't a lot of people that will go to other areas of Knoxville. And so when we started this in the Troubadour, we started noticing new people showing up that we hadn't either heard of before, or they hadn't even understood that stuff is going on downtown. And now that's kind of exploding all over Knoxville, which is amazing. I lived in Nashville for a while. And when I moved to Knoxville, and I've been in other music areas, and when I moved to Knoxville, I noticed that the quality of musicians and songwriters and the quantity, the per capita, Nashville doesn't hold a candle to the Knoxville area in terms of talent. And variety, diversity, the amount of ability, and the amount of available musicians. And I've been saying that ever since I got here. I've been here 20 years, and it's been an amazing arc to see the growth of certain musicians, how much talent really comes out of here. So there's a lot going on in Knoxville musically.
Yes. Yes, there is. And man, there's so much in that I wish we could unpack. The one thing that occurred to me is just referring to the Troubadour for a second, it's very much, there's this thing that happens where it's not necessarily the first thing that, it's not necessarily being the first that means you're going to be successful. Like, you guys had a great idea to, bring this music to the Bearden area, but like it was just the starting place for this community to build up in that area. And it's almost like you're opening the door for this community building to start.
Yeah, I mean, I actually would take it in a different direction.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay. It's like, okay, it's going to sound strange,
sure,
but let's go there. Scientists discovered a long, long time ago that there's an organism. It's like one of the largest living organisms on the planet. And it happens to be what they call a grove of aspen trees in Colorado. Mm-hmm. And what they realized is they weren't individual trees. They were all connected by roots. So it's like the crepe myrtle around here is that roots will grow out, and then you'll see other opportunities. You'll see sprouts come out of these roots and grow into other crepe myrtles. So a lot of people don't realize that these are bamboo's the same way. Mm-hmm. These are they're spreading. Let's call it the kudzu effect.
Right.
It's like
that's a local thing I just learned about recently.
Yeah,
actually,
well, it's not local. I mean, it's all over, but
right,
it's in Virginia and all those. But it's it's these. It takes over this hill, and that's what I think happens is that. Who knows who the first was? Who knows what the first person who was doing this or that? I never think that there's an original idea. You're always taking from something or another. So these are branches. These are shoots. These are roots that spread out in the community, and then something will pop up in this area, and something will pop up in this area. And I think that's part of what the Troubadour Roadhouse was about, and what's happening now is that we weren't an extension of downtown, but if it wasn't because of downtown, we wouldn't have done what we did. And maybe those seedlings, those roots, something reminiscent of it, a leftover, helped these other places to pop up and be a little bit more successful. And I think that's great. I mean, it's a shame for me, lost a ton of money, but I love the fact that I'm seeing these sprouts.
Beautiful.
So coming up, and it's happening in more and more places.
Yeah.
So,
well, and I can't help, and this is from, I toured through Eastern Tennessee a dozen times maybe, mostly in Chattanooga, but we played here in town as well, some. But in moving here, I was really amazed by the fact that unlike a lot of cities where you sort of have the downtown, and that's it. It's like there's just all of these other little micro populations of music, like Oak Ridge or, out west or in all of these different places that it just can't happen elsewhere.
Right.
And that's what is so beautiful about Knoxville as an area. And going back to this, this kudzu effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Knoxville is interesting in a lot of ways as far as business and music is concerned, especially restaurants. So I don't know if you know this, but the statistic is that Knoxville has more chain restaurants and restaurants per capita than anywhere else in the country. And so a lot of chains will come in and they will see if they can be successful in Knoxville. And the thought behind it is if they're successful in Knoxville, they'll be successful in other markets. Now, I don't know. I haven't researched that. That's what I've been told. I don't know the veracity behind it, but what's interesting, it seems to kind of hold true. And after I moved from Nashville to here, I got into radio. And a lot of these music promoters and a lot of these record labels had this unknown thing that they didn't really talk about, but it was known in the industry that I found out later, is that if a song, depending on the market that it's being played to, whether it's a country market or a AAA market or something, if a song reached success in Knoxville, it was going to be a success nationwide.
Wow.
And I thought that was really, really interesting. And I started to ask these promoters, because I had a radio show on Sunday nights, the first station I was at, and then went to 7 nights a week. And then I asked these promoters, and they said, yeah, what we're finding is that sales and airplay in Knoxville predicts how the track is going to do in other markets. And Knoxville's not a huge market. They're not in the top 40. They're in the top 100, but they're not in the top 40. And as far as radio markets are concerned. And so it was kind of like a test market.
Yeah.
But the thing is, if you can be successful in Knoxville, you can be successful in other areas. I see the other side of that. Like, Knoxville will beat you up. Knoxville will test you and beat you up. And I've seen a lot of really talented musicians, a lot of talented business people give up because it's brutal. And I gotta say that, it's tested me in many ways. I found an easier time in Nashville musically than
like as a player or as a person in like the industry side.
I went to Nashville to write.
Right.
I
have so many questions about that, by the way.
Okay.
But keep going.
All right. So I went to Nashville to write, and the only reason I went was to find out if I was good enough for publishers. Mm-hmm. I knew I was good enough for what I did, but I never knew if I was good enough for other people in the industry. And for me, that was important. It was important for me to get some kind of validation in the industry, not in the mainstream. It's just in the industry. There's certain people that I admire that are really well known in the industry, but they're not known to the general population.
Sure.
So I wanted to see if I had what it took, if I had that indescribable thing, that X factor as far as writing was concerned, creating a piece of music that might translate for somebody else. And I was lucky enough to find that. And once I found that, I had reached my level of success. I didn't need to go any farther. I didn't want to tour. I didn't want to, write full time. I just wanted to see if I had it. I got that. I'm losing track of why we got onto this subject before I got to because I knew it was like I found it easier. Yeah. That's right. I found it easier in Nashville than when I got to Knoxville, and I came because of a girl. Yeah, and of course, same old story.
It's one of the reasons I'm here, actually. Yeah. So I get it.
Moved to Nashville because I broke up with somebody, and my truck broke down. My dog got cancer. It's the whole country song I never wrote, and then moved to Knoxville because of a girl, and we ended up having a great business together, and we got married and had a son, and we're no longer married, but we have a great 17-year-old son, and I wanted to do something again with music. I had given up after 9/11.
Mm-hmm. What do you? Can I ask that? It's okay if I understand we're on the air, but what was the reason for
giving up?
Yeah,
I had reached my level, like I said.
Sure,
and I decided I was moving here. I decided, we were going to get married, decided to come here, and I decided I was going to just do something different. And I was sitting on the front step of the house that I still live in today, and I got a call from my publishing agent. And I wasn't really into anything anyway. I didn't really have a lot going on with music at that point, more concentrating on starting a family and things. And my publishing agent calls me up. He's Garrett, and he's got a heavy German accent, and he tells me that a record label had passed on the song. And a very industry-wide thing to do is that when somebody likes a song, they put a hold on it. Mm-hmm. And so Sony ATV had put a hold on this particular song, meaning that the agent couldn't shop it to anywhere else.
Sure.
And he said the record label ultimately passed. And I asked him what happened, and he told me. And I remember sitting there and thinking, well, I want to get married anyway. I want to start a life. I'm kind of not really doing anything with music right now, but seriously, if Billy Ray Cyrus doesn't think my song's good enough, I must not be good enough. So, forget that. I'm not going to do it anymore. He just, everyone else liked the song, the label, the producer, the A&R rep, everyone liked the song. Billy Ray Cyrus didn't like it. He was the one who passed on. It's not that he didn't like it. He just passed on. He didn't want to have it in that collection. But I took it as a kick in the crotch. I was like, oh, this is horrible. Billy Ray Cyrus of all people. And,
what are you doing, Billy?
Oh my God.
Or is it Billy Ray? Is
Billy
it,
Ray.
do you call him Billy Ray or do you call him Billy?
I don't call him anything. So I don't know. But, a couple years later, after we had started a retail and wholesale business, there was an ad, a commercial on a local radio station, and they were looking for a host for a segment of music that I knew a lot about, and I had no radio experience whatsoever. I'd done a few interviews and things like that, but nothing behind the microphone. And somebody, I called and I left a message, couldn't get in touch with the program director. Then 5 days later, I called again. And then I was like, yeah, this guy hasn't called me back. And so my wife at the time says, call one more time. Third time's always the charm. Just call one more time and say, look. And so I did. And I called and I said, look, third time's usually the charm. And I put it all out there. I said, I have no experience whatsoever, but I know everything about this music genre. I know everything about it. The guy called me up and he had hired me based on that message. So I was thrown into radio. And that's how I got, back into that aspect of it. It was a new chapter. I was like, oh wow, I'm now behind the microphone talking about music that I love and that I really, and I found a new purpose. But in doing that, I found also that this radio station was involved heavily in the local music scene. And so the operations director and a local club owner got together and they had this idea, let's start our own American Idol. Let's start our own, thing. There's a lot of talent here. And so they put together an idea and sat us all down and said, we want you guys, me and this other gentleman, to host an open mic. So we started an open mic downtown and found so many people coming out and wanting to play. And not only playing at this club that's got a definite, history. I mean, they rebuilt a stage that has a heel mark from one of the Avett brothers, that's still there under the original stage, because he hit the floor so hard. He put his foot in the back. In
true Avett fashion.
Yeah, and a stage that hosted the Johnson Brothers and Snow Patrol and all of these great bands that went on to do other things, and went on to bigger places. And so we started this open mic, and that's when I discovered, I was here for 2 years before that, and discovered the wealth of talent here in Knoxville, and was just absolutely amazed. And it kind of gave me a new outlook on music, something I hadn't thought about before, and being in radio. And when my ex-wife and I, when we got divorced, and I went full-time into radio, and went full-time deeper into the music scene here, and found just extraordinary things, just amazing. So it was all kind of building towards the Troubadour and the ultimate moment, and I'm grateful for it. And what I'm grateful for recently is that last song I wrote, probably 2001, didn't write another song until 2017. Wrote 3 songs, 3 days in a row, a song each day. Hadn't written since until just recently, and I just started to write a whole bunch of new stuff and getting out there. And I'm really grateful and thankful for this new crop of hosts and this new crop of musicians, because there is a real great sense of community and support when we meet people like you. And it's something that hadn't happened in other places. Like, hey, Nick, come on in, man. Come out and play. And everyone's really open and accepting. It'll still beat you up. It'll still test you. You're not going to get the slot that you want at the open mic. You're not going to get the gig that you want at one of the local breweries. It's the thing I learned about music. Thing I learned about the music business, and we'll talk about this at one point or another. There's the music business and there's the business of music, and they're not the same thing. They are mutually exclusive.
Yep.
And you'll get that gig at the brewery, and no one will listen to you. It's like playing at a sports club with a big screen TV behind your back, and you're playing songs that nobody wants to hear because they're more interested in March Madness. And we've all been there.
To March Madness, you're saying? Oh, no, I'm just kidding.
No. Playing, totally. Playing in places like, we don't care what you're playing. We want to watch the game,
Right.
And, but there's still, despite that, the thing that I learned in business a long time ago is it's a circle of no.
Yeah.
It's an absolute circle of no. And once you realize what that means, the consumer says no to the radio station. The radio station says no to the record label. The record label says no to the artist. The artist says no to the song. The songwriter says no to, other things. It's a circle of no. It's just, you put something out and not everyone's going to like it. Not everyone's going to buy it. Not everyone's going to want it. You're going to get no's along the way. No's don't matter anymore. It's the yes, that's what you pay attention to. Once you realize everyone's going to say no, it's the first word we learn. No, other than dada, it's the first word we learn is no. And we say it more than any other word in any language combined. No is what, people say. And once you get past that, it doesn't matter anymore. Silently you'll go home and you'll hang your head in shame. Like, I did a terrible job at the open mic tonight. Nobody paid attention. I didn't play well. I didn't sing well. My voice was cracking. Whatever it was, whatever doubt that you have, you remember that thing. So what? Everyone says no. Everyone says no. Mm-hmm. The entire industry is built on no. It doesn't matter.
Well, it's a calling to sort of find that, this is a little woo-woo, but it's finding that yes within yourself, finding the reason to do it, and finding a personal connection.
And that brings me right back to the Knoxville music scene, which is the support.
Yes.
And even though there's a competition to get airtime and to get mic time, is that all you need is that one person who sincerely comes up to you and says, man, I loved what you did tonight. And that, I find, is unique to Knoxville. I've played clubs in New York City. I've played Boston. I've played all over the Northeast. I've played all over the East Coast. I've played out in California and in Texas. Knoxville is unique to this phenomenon that you get that one person who is just extremely supportive over what you do. And this is a person that you're competing with. And that's a rarity. That is a rarity.
Which is true. And actually, but it does connect to, if I'm just going to insert a personal story here, my landlord right now is someone who came up, my duo partner and I had played at WDVX, and we were packing up, it was just sort of we don't do particularly well at noon. I don't think most musicians play particularly well at noon, but we're throwing our guitars in the car, and she came up into the parking lot and said, "You guys sounded great on the radio. If you ever need a place to stay when you're in town, hit me up. I got a house." And I now live in that house all these years later. But but that's just another example. It's not just the musicians, it's the people. There's a lot of love for live music and that experience, the sort of visceral, the visceral music experience here that is not necessarily the case elsewhere.
Yes. There's another phenomenon that happens here.
Sure.
the negative side of it, because there's positives and negatives on both sides. The negative side is, yes, there is that overwhelming support for listenership, because a lot of musicians, it's a rare breed that is able to play and get up in front of a microphone and sing to a crowd. It takes a lot of courage to get up there and do that, and those people deserve to be applauded. And I always used to say that when I hosted my open mics, is like, no, it doesn't matter if you don't like it. Clap for what they're doing, because
They're putting themselves out there.
Putting themselves out
Yeah.
there. And that's really important. It takes a lot of courage. What we do find is that Knoxville, no matter how much the the community supports the people who want to go out and play music, and they appreciate it, they don't appreciate it to a point where musicians can make a living.
Sure.
And that's also it's a phenomenon that's kind of unique to the United States, but to Knoxville, people aren't really willing to go out and pay to hear somebody play, and they don't seem to. Not everyone. This is I'm making a general statement, but I want to clarify this by saying there's this non-understanding of what a musician needs to go through and what they've done, and there's a difficulty comprehending that there's a value behind what they do, and sometimes people just don't want to pay the $3 or the $5 for a cover charge to listen to some really unique bands. Maybe because sometimes if they're paying $3 or $5 to get into a place, the bands aren't very good, or the music isn't what they like. The point is that these people are there entertaining, and they do deserve to. They do deserve some recompense. They do deserve some form of appreciation, not just clapping.
Right.
Not just woo woo, great job. And, it's like, hey, you've spent thousands of hours practicing and singing and grueling. Some people have spent tens of thousands of dollars going to school. Knoxville, I wish that there were more people who were willing to put that out there. But the community that is out there that does that is incredibly magnanimous and generous and really, really supportive, to the point where this internet radio station streams from a guy who had such passion and love for music, would host concerts in his own living room for people to come in. And it's transferred into this more collective thing of getting Knoxville musicians and East Tennessee musicians and people from all over to come together and say, hey, this comes from a music fan, and I think that's just an incredible thing for people who aren't don't know. We're talking about Chris Lamb, who started Real Knoxville Music.
He may be a fly in the room right now. Yeah. Well, no, and that's a really important thing to even just address, is like the fact that a lot of this community building comes from people who are not just artists, but also fans.
Yeah.
And understand that, going back to that root system thing that we talked about before, is that it takes a lot of people to breed a successful act.
Yeah.
And or a lot of industry money. Which we don't have to dive into that.
No, we can, because that's actually something I'm really, really passionate about. And if you don't mind, I mean, that's something that is hard to translate to musicians right now. Because of COVID, because of the lockdowns, because of the slowdowns and everything that happened, and a lot of musicians retreating to their own studios, not being able to play out live. A ton of music is released. Unfortunately, that's bad for the everyday working musician, for people who are on the periphery trying to get more towards the center, because so much music is being released, things are being dominated by money. And one of the things in music, I learned this in audio engineering school, is that if you're not willing to put money behind yourself, why would anybody else be willing to put money in you? Same thing with banking. If you don't have the funds, why should we lend you something? There needs to be a risk versus reward kind of thing, and they want you invested in what you're doing. That's a thing that's becoming more difficult, especially with the advent of Spotify and things like that, is that you spend all this time and money recording a song, but then you put no money behind promoting it. How's anyone supposed to hear it? That's one side. The other side is you might put $150 into a Facebook advertising campaign that lasts for 30 days. And you might have some conversions and people becoming fans. That $150 compared to the $15,000 that the independent label has, or the $150,000 that the major label has, is almost insignificant. So for the first half of 2020, between January 1st and June 30th of 2020, 1.6 million songs were released worldwide. 1.6 million. Of those, 6,000 got listened to. That's less than half a percent. Yeah, 6,000 got listened to. That's less than 0.5%. And so 1.6 million, but only 6,000 worldwide got listened to. And that's just for the first half of 2020. Now, what happened in April of 2020 is all those musicians were at home recording or going into the studios and recording. And since May 1st through December 31st, 2020, 3.2 million songs got released. Double what was done in the first 6 months. So between now in May and June have an overlap. Even if you take that out, it's still
giant leap. Yeah.
Giant leap, because so many people are getting recognition. Now, let's put that into even more perspective. Let's bring it down to 3 million, say between July 1st and December 31st. 3 million songs got released. 3,000 of them. 3,000.
Oh my gosh.
0.1%.
Yeah.
3,000 of them got attention. The rest of them didn't. And you're trying to compete. Can you hear that dog barking in the neighborhood? I hear a dog coming through.
Oh, yeah. He's a silent partner.
Silent partner.
Yeah, he's contributing.
It's tough for musicians to compete and get that space. That's something that I noticed over the summer, and I made a conscious effort to try to help people. And I was like, look, I know that it's a big stretch, but if you don't step up and try to go toe-to-toe with these promoters, your songs aren't going to get the recognition that they might otherwise deserve. And there's no guarantee that people are going to get heard on Spotify or on the radio or through Facebook or anything. There's no guarantee at all, because you're talking about billions of accounts across the world, and people are fickle. And it's a cycle of no. It's a circle of no. More than 99% of the population is never going to hear what you do. But that doesn't matter. That doesn't mean you stop. It doesn't mean you give up. You've got to put that effort behind it. And that's something that we're finding right now, is that because Knoxville beats you up, because people are gun shy. And I think that that's a tragic mistake, because I believe in this music community more than any other music community I've ever been in. And I've been in some fantastic music communities before, and some of the people that I came up with, whether it was performing live or recording or releasing their stuff have gone on to do even greater and bigger things. And I think that exists here in Knoxville. So, money's a big thing. It's a big part of it. But I don't want that to let people, or I don't want that letting people off by giving up. I mean,
sure.
There's too much at stake. I mean, you're putting too much into it. And music is just, I don't know. It's ever since, I just remember those days where you listened to radio and it was kind of dangerous and fun, and you turned that record on or that CD and you wore it out. You listened to it over and over and over again. That song, you knew every nuance of the song.
Sure.
There's something just so, I hate to sound esoteric, but something so magical about it.
Well, yeah, and the physical experience of like holding an LP, or holding a CD, and I just remember that the liner notes, the artwork, the experience. It was like you're a part of something.
Yeah,
and it's hard to recreate that.
Yes.
In the digital world.
Yes.
And people are trying. Like, yeah. I remember when the Arcade Fire had put out The Suburbs, and they were the first to do this, like, do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. Yeah. What a bizarre and interesting experiment that they did with these tabs that would open up, and it was really crazy. And it's so, while I appreciate the amount of effort that went into that, it's sad that artists are now forced to, as we said, the business of music and the music. What? How did you say that before?
There's the business of music, and then there's the music business.
Music business, yes.
Right.
It's almost like these musicians. A lot of musicians are forced to deal with a lot of mediums and a lot of other parts of the industry that are not. How do I play the best sounding G chord that I can? Right.
And that can cause musicians and songwriters to get stuck in this paralysis of what do I do? Do I improve how I'm playing up and down on these 6 strings, or on how I'm doing these notes on the piano, or do I concentrate on having better business acumen to try to get a gig and sell myself? What do I do here? I've always believed very strongly, I learned this at a very early age, it's not that I'm self-deprecating or that I'm down on myself. I understand my ability.
I love that. I absolutely love that. Right? Go ahead.
I understand my ability. And I know where I'm better at things. I've always been better behind the scenes than I have been out front. Now, that's pretty funny coming from a guy who started, as a lead singer in a band, not playing an instrument and being thrown a bass and like, here, these are the chords, or here's the notes, this is what you play. And not really wanting that. But I always thought, after going to audio engineering school, I'm a much better producer and an engineer than I am a performer. And I don't mind that. Like I said, I'm not being self-deprecating. It's just I understand what my ability is. And I've always believed you don't produce your own stuff. You let somebody else do it who knows what they're doing. And if you don't know whether or not, you honestly don't know whether or not to improve that G chord or improve your business acumen, ask yourself the question, do I want to be a musician or do I want to be a business person?
Right.
And if the answer is musician, improve the G chord. That's what you do. Let somebody else do the business stuff.
Huh.
Because it's going to help. There are experts. I've given away a lot of free advice over the years. That's a detriment to me. I have expertise in certain things.
Sure.
I've dabbled. I tell people I know a little about a lot of different things, but there are a few things that I know really, really well. And one of them is if you really want to know what to do about music, just ask yourself that question. Do I want to be a business person or do I want to be a musician? And whatever the answer is, that's where you go into.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, the path of least resistance. I mean, it's a thing. I started realizing when I started teaching the idea. It's like with these young minds, and they're ready to take on the world, and especially like, I don't know, the level of ability that a young up and coming person has with their familiarity with computers, with the fact that they have this playful approach to recording, to all of this stuff, and that they can really make art out of it. It really forces my hand to say things like, when they ask those types of questions, well, what do I do? It's like, well, the answer is right in front of you. It's like, you just have to be real with what you like. Is it the engineering? Is it the writing? Is it, and there's so much. It's funny. I'm realizing that I'm rambling right now.
No, that's okay. That's the best thing about talking. Just,
yeah. Anyway, to come back around, just to say that, like, this path of least resistance approach to music making is the only one that really works. I think, with the exception of when something is forced, which I feel I don't know, because I haven't spent a lot of time in the industry, but I have heard a lot of stories about people that I knew who were in the industry and were going to be the next big thing, and then they were not the next big thing, and a lot of money was spent to try to make them the next big thing or vet them in that process, But ultimately, I feel like in a lot of those cases, if that person, they had really sat down with that person and,
it's it's interesting that you just brought that up, because that's happened here in Knoxville,
right?
Where I'm not going to mention trades or names,
sure,
but there are several artists that have been singled out in trade magazines and said, "Oh, watch out for this guy," and then nothing ever materialized, or "Watch out for this band," and nothing ever materialized, and then there's been that occasion where it's been a passing comment that has been overlooked millions of times.
Sure.
Of, oh yeah, this band came out of Knoxville, Tennessee. And then they're huge. Now, they're not huge overnight. They're huge, years later, because they've been working night and day at it. But that's that thing, it's like, oh, it might not materialize. They're putting so much money in. It doesn't happen. Again, cycle of no. It's no big deal. You just keep at it. I'm going to, in a little bit of a tangent, I'm going to go on something that you said earlier. So there's this duo out right now that no one understands as a duo. And the real genius behind what's happening for this artist is the brother.
Oh, yes. I know who you're talking about.
I'm talking about Billie Eilish.
Yes, of course.
I'm talking about Billie Eilish and Phineas. And Billie Eilish, really cool. Really, really cool.
Yeah.
Great, great interpretation. Amazing of what's happening with how she's taking these lyrics and these melodies and working them. Really, really impressive. The real genius is her brother. And, a lot of people don't even know, that they hear Billie Eilish, like, oh, I love Billie Eilish. Well, Phineas is really the one who's
right.
doing it, It's an example of that, do what you know, stick with what you know the best. But there's an example of people who, right place, right time, great parents, stay up all night. As long as you're making music, it's fine. If you're doing other things, it's not cool. But if you're going to be recording, go ahead, have fun. And all of that work. I mean, they worked at it for years. Before, things just happened. So there's that rare story of, that person who comes out of nowhere didn't spend a lot of money, huge. And then the act that, we're going to put all this money into this act, and it fails.
Yeah. It's funny. When Billie Eilish comes up in conversation for me, I find that it's the thing I'm most attracted to talking to about her is actually her lyricism, which is independent of Phineas, but not exclusive, because so much of that I think about the level of detail in his production and sampling.
He's very integral in
and intentional.
Incredibly intentional. They have their a brother and sister team, and they fight and they argue, but he gives his opinion on a lyric, and she gives her opinion on a progression, and it works out. The majority of it, I think, is his. I think is his. I mean, I'm just putting that. But you're right. The genius of her lyrics,
and there's a vulnerability to it that we don't often see, and a playfulness with a lot of dark content that young people are experiencing, and that they don't. Yeah,
I'm sorry. Just placing that was like,
I nearly fell back in the chair in excitement for that
like, oh my God. It's just so, the punctuation of it and the sheer brilliance of it and the simplicity of it, it hits you. And everybody who's listening right now, they know, I mean, and you've said it 1,000 times, but it's that ability to take a common phrase and turn it on its ear and make something magical of it. That's a true artist. That's a true artist. I hesitate to bring this next artist up, but it's an example of myth versus reality. Taylor Swift.
Oh, yep.
All right, Taylor Swift.
My roommate went to the high school that she went to in Pennsylvania before. Yeah.
So there's a couple that used to live here, Rob and Candace Cronin, great musicians. Rob's a fantastic guitarist, an incredible interpretive performer as well. Like, he can take a Talking Heads song and completely turn it upside down. Like, oh, wow, what did you just do? Amazing. Candace is a fantastic lyricist, great voice, and a lot of fun. But a few years ago, they moved back to Pennsylvania. Candace went to high school with Taylor and would tell stories.
Yeah.
And so the thing about Taylor Swift is, no matter what anyone says, unfortunately for them, she's the real deal. She's a really, really good writer and has been. Now, did she learn that with other people? Yes, she did, but she's the real deal.
Right.
And that's amazing. Love her or hate her, and most people hate her. She does some really, really interesting stuff. Now, the myth versus reality part is who she really was in high school versus what they pretended she was.
Right.
She said, oh, she was this geek. No, she wasn't. She wasn't a geek. She was very popular,
Right.
Parents had a lot of money. She was very fortunate.
Yeah.
Very fortunate.
Well, and that's an unfortunate reality about the music industry, as I found it, is that it's a lot of times the people who are succeeding. Well, I moved here from Brooklyn, which, the only people who have the time to really focus on their music are the people who are not paying their own rent.
Yeah.
And you can probably guess where that money comes from, listeners at home. And yeah.
You want to, I say this to aspiring rappers, and there's a few hip hop artists here in town that are really good, really, really good. It's a genre of music that Knoxville doesn't pay enough attention to. And
I'm picking your brain on this after the radio show, by the way.
And I know some of these artists really, really want to make it big. And the unfortunate reality in hip hop and rap right now is, you want to make it big, you need $50,000. And you need to put that money, you need to put everything and borrow from everybody, put a fundraiser together. But if you want to get a hit on radio and you want to get out there, you need $50,000. And it's the harsh reality of things. And I don't like it. It's not fun. How are we going to do it on time?
Oh, just checking. So we're got about another minute. Are we?
I'll run the place. You can do whatever.
We have carte blanche, folks. We have carte blanche.
I think he likes this discussion. So
Yeah.
I think he likes where it's going. So that's the harsh reality of certain genres of music is money, and it's terrible, especially in Knoxville, where, especially in the downtown music scene and in the music scene in general. I'm going to be controversial, but there's a lot of progressives in the music scene here in Knoxville. You know, there's a few conservatives, but there's a lot of progressives, and you know, who don't like the billionaire class. And I don't begrudge them anything like that, but unfortunately, you got to make that decision. Do you want to make art or do you want to make money?
Yeah,
and that's a tough decision to make, especially with, you know, the state of how things are right now. So, to any aspiring hip hop artists and rappers out there, you know, I'd love to talk to you about how to do it and how you can do it with a limited budget, but you got to be realistic. You really want to do it, it's going to take some money. But if you want to have fun and do it locally and not have to travel too far, there's ways that you can do that too. And that's, you know, I hope that's okay, because that's another thing that I think, you know, I would like to tell people like yourself.
sure.
Do you want to make music or do you want to make money making music? Because, you know, there's a way to make music. Not a lot of money, but there's a lot of ways to make money making music and making a lot of other people happy. You might not be so thrilled with it, but that comes with the music business part.
Sure.
So, and I do need to clarify this, you know, what we've talked about several times, the business of music and the music business. It doesn't matter how you ascribe either statement, whether the business of music is about writing and composing and lyrics and things like that. If that's the business of music and the music business is about business, about performing and, you know, getting paid, however you want to classify, either phrase is going to work in either direction. But there are times when you're going to have to kind of sacrifice to get paid. The best example I can come up with, I think everyone will understand, is Don McLean, American Pie. Every time that guy plays out, he's got to play American Pie, or he's not getting paid.
Right.
You know, and he's got to play that song over and over. The past 50 years, he's been playing that song. He hates it. He hates the song, but he's got to do it. Mary Chapin Carpenter is the same way. You know, she does these country shows, and she's not a country artist. She's an Americana and a folk artist. And if she's playing a country show, she has to do that one country song that made it on country radio to make the crowd go nuts. And they love it. They think it's the best show ever. They don't like anything else that she does. As long as she does Twist and Shout, they're fine. So you want to make money?
Yeah.
Learn a lot of covers. Learn a lot of cover songs and do really, really well at it. And I've seen people around here make a ton of money doing it, buying themselves great houses and having a great family life, doing nothing but covers. It's not ideal, especially for, you know, innate artists, but it's a harsh reality of life. And I hate that it's that way, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we are coming to a close.
Okay.
I would love, but how about this? Because I don't want to end on such a. I mean, it's not a down. It's not a down note. It's just. It's
call me
it's
negative.
It's
negative Nancy.
It's just the reality. Well, okay. So how about this? I just quickly, man, you're not going to be able to pick a favorite, but just tell me about one of your favorite nights of live music here in Knoxville.
Oh, that's a great question. That is a great question. I'm going to have to say, all right, great nights of wow. There are a lot. There are a lot. I'm going to have to say it is a woman out of Asheville, outside of Asheville. Very underknown. But boy, is she amazing. And the first time I saw her play, I mean, I had heard her records before and everything, but the first time I had heard her play live, it was just an absolutely magical night. And it was upstairs on the second floor of the Preservation Pub down on Market Square. It was in the summertime. It was a Wednesday evening. I can be very specific about what time it was and everything, but it was a Wednesday evening.
The humidity was at 73%.
It was a beautiful, beautiful night. And there was just this. I happened to be on the radio interviewing her while she was playing live. So I was just really fortunate. I was sitting in for somebody who hosted these live shows. And there was this real camaraderie between me and this artist. And she just had an absolutely magical night of music. And her name is Kellen Watson. And even though she's not from Tennessee, she has a manager here in Tennessee that has ties to Lenore City. And she's still pretty local, only 90 miles away. But it was just amazing watching people come upstairs and hear this woman singing in fluent Quebecois French and English, and she's not French. You know, she just happened to have a friend who came from Quebec and taught her these words, and playing all this stuff, and seamlessly going through a folk hip hop song to this raunchy blues, and just an incredible night of music. That's only one, and if I had 100 pairs of hands, I could keep naming, finger after finger.
I feel like that's its own radio show.
But it's, there are nights that are just absolutely magical that happen here in Knoxville. I hope that happens everywhere, but there are nights here in Knoxville that just musically, they're absolutely just amazing. Just amazing. So I wish I could.
Local band right now.
What's that?
Your favorite local band?
My favorite local band?
Put you on the spot.
All of them. Wow, putting me on the spot. I mean, do I have to answer that, my favorite local band? Because there are a lot of really... last week I saw this amazing cover band. They were doing songs that I was like, holy God, I didn't...
Top three.
Top three favorite local bands?
Yeah.
Bands? Do they have to be bands?
Artist, band, rapper.
Let's not say top. Let's just say a couple that come to mind. I don't want to put the man on the spot.
Three great ones.
Oh, okay. So here's the thing.
Maybe not your favorite, but three that are in your top 10.
This is, people are going to feel slighted because there's so many good ones. There are so many good ones.
And what's beautiful about Knoxville is that I really feel like all of the artists around here have such personality, and it's almost like not even fair to like pit some of these people against each other.
Yeah, it really isn't, because we don't need more competition,
right?
Amongst the performers and the musicians and the songwriters. They all have their unique ability, and again, I'm going to say it again. People might get tired of me hearing this, but it takes something really special and magical for a person to get up on stage and play and sing. And it doesn't even matter if if their voice is their only instrument, if they're playing guitar, whatever they're using, whatever their instrument is, getting up on stage is an incredibly scary thing. And these people deserve to be applauded and respected and revered for what they do. It doesn't matter if it's not my style of music. The fact that they get up there is just so extraordinary, and I'm lucky to get to experience that. I feel really grateful. I'm always the first one clapping when somebody starts, because I know how it feels if you're, like you finish the song and people don't clap. You're like, I'm going to be like Donald Trump. I'm going to start clapping for myself. I'm kidding. I don't like Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, I think that. I think that is a great note to end on. Yeah.
Guys, keep doing it. It's just what you're doing is is needed, and it's just so. I don't want to sound all weepy and mushy, but it's so magical. It's just so incredible that you get up there and do that, because not a lot of people can, and it's amazing to hear each and every one of you.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah.
Thank you for being here, Cullen.
Not a problem. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, let me just sign off by saying, again, you listen to Meet Music Knoxville here on Real Knoxville Music, and also that we have Make Music Knoxville coming up on June 21st. You can find information about that by going to makemusicknox.com. And with that, we are signing off.